they will always manipulate the court system. Mm-hmm. They know how to turn on the tears when they need to. They know how to be the victim. They have the whole rule book of like the script of like, well, how am I going to not be incriminated? They've already thought it through. Mm-hmm. We're just being human, you know? I remember locking myself in the bathroom and I was like, who do I call? I can't call my mom, right? I can't expose him. Called his brother. His brother was like, you know what you got yourself into? And I was like, mm-mm. And I had to like hold myself against the door with my feet against the sink. And I was like, this guy's gonna come in and kill me.
Hi everyone, I'm Karina Reyna. I'm a family law attorney at Reyna Law.
Hi everyone, I'm Heidi Castañeda, the paralegal and office manager at Reyna Law.
On Drama in Session, we talk about what family law really looks like once the paperwork is filed and the emotions are high.
We spill a little tea from our caseload because family law can get messy, but the bigger goal is to talk honestly about what people are actually going through when they find themselves in the middle of legal and emotional chaos.
Through our conversations, topics, and guest speakers, we break down what's really happening behind the scenes and help you make sense of the conflict, the court process, and everything in between, so you're not walking through it feeling lost or alone.
Welcome to Drama in Session.
Hi guys, so welcome to Drama in Session with Karina
and Heidi.
This morning, we have a very special guest with us today. Everyone say hi to Nastassia.
Hi everyone.
So you're here because obviously you run a business and you have a social media platform and, you know, behind the scenes, you're like a badass business person. Okay. She's like, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But you're also going through a custody case that you've been going through for some time now.
Yes.
And I know we were talking a little bit about everything you've been through and how it's all going. So I guess tell us a little bit about what you're dealing with. First, how many kids do you have?
Okay, so I have 2 girls. They are 8 and 9. They're Irish twins.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're 10.5 months apart.
So right before the show, she was like, how old are your kids? And I told her how old they were. And she's like, oh, you have a large gaps. And I was like, oh, I love gaps. But I didn't realize that you had back to back. It's like you left the hospital and then got pregnant again.
And then I got pregnant again. Yeah,
Wow.
It was so fast. I remember, Paloma was like 2 months old. And then I wanted to eat In-N-Out again. And I was like,
oh. And you're like, but wait.
Yeah, but wait. And so I found out I was pregnant right away.
Oh my gosh, that must have been so hard though in the beginning to have. So I always wonder, like they say having kids close in age is good. I mean, later on in life, right? Because they grow up together and they always have a friend.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine going through the trenches of having like back-to-back newborns. And how old were you?
I was 26.
Okay.
So I wasn't like a baby, but even then I felt like I was 16 and pregnant.
Oh yeah.
You know, because like,
oh yeah.
I was like, I'm a teenager and pregnant right now.
Yeah.
You know, like nobody was having babies. I was like the only person that I knew, like in my age range, that was pregnant and having to be responsible. Everybody else was partying.
And then here you are with 2.
And here I am with 2. Yeah.
So how was that in the beginning?
It was hard because I remember just like 6 months before giving birth, I was like, I'm not having kids. Like, I don't, not that I didn't want kids, but I was just like, no, like I have so much to live. And so then I got pregnant and I was like, okay, this is going to be super easy. Like, I'm going to keep going to work. I'm going to have my little pack and play and I'm just going to work. And luckily my first daughter was like perfection, but then I got pregnant again. And then when my second one came, I was like, oh no. Like, she took all my attention. But it's funny because like I feel like I'm saying that as if I have had like the perfect marriage and like, you know. But no, I was like 100% by myself.
Wow.
Raising 2 like miniature aliens. Yeah, like
aliens. We've never had kids but I mean it's so foreign. It's so strange. I remember like going home with my first baby and just looking at him like, who would trust me with a whole human being right now? Like, and how come nobody's checked in on me?
Yes.
You know, like obviously my parents and stuff, but like the state or something, or like doctors are not gonna call me and make sure like we're both alive.
I know. I felt like that, but then I was also like, where is my paycheck coming from the government? Because I was like, I'm going to raise like a really good human being. Like I'm contributing to society. Like somebody needs to pay me for this.
Right?
Yeah.
That's true, really.
So, so I basically handled everything by myself, but I think the crazy thing is a lot of women ask me like, how do you do it? You know, you have 2 babies by yourself, like both of them didn't walk at some point, you know what I mean? And and women would always be like, how do you do it? Or they would want to get out of their situation. And I'd be like, I can't throw myself on the floor and just give up.
Yeah.
Right? Like
you have no option.
I have no option. And like people would give me kudos and like, wow, you're so amazing. I'm like, I'm not amazing. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do.
I'm just making sure they're alive. Another day.
Yeah. So I think, life is so crazy because if someone sat there and said, hey, next year you're about to take on this whole thing by yourself, the way you prepare is so different than if life just throws it at you, right? Like someone would probably end up wanting to just like jump off a cliff because they're like, I cannot do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you realize like your strength, not in the moment. It's like I look back to myself because they're 8 and 9 and I'm like, wow, like it's been almost 10 years and like I've done it. I did it. I didn't die. And my girls are like, they're way cooler than most kids.
Well, that's awesome. And it's funny that you were saying that because I think as women, we're always trying to find like the secret formula, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did you do it? How did you survive?
Yeah.
Like, what was it like? And you're like, I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I was there. But I think I had like an outer body experience. I remember little things, but like for me to sit there and tell you how I did it, I don't know. You just woke up and you did it.
You just do it.
And then I'm assuming you kept working?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was actually really blessed to be a stay-at-home single mom. No thanks to their dad, but my family business kept, being the fuel for my daughters and I to survive. Yeah. And I hate saying that out loud because people are like, oh my God, she's so spoiled. But I'm like, well, that's my story. And that's kind of it's not everyone's story. And I've been really blessed to have that. But people don't know that like, okay, yes, she has something that's giving her stability. And that's probably what my blessing was and has been. But I don't know that I would trade having financial stability. I would trade having financial stability to have emotional peace and to have stability in a partner. Because why wouldn't I have wanted that from a partner? And then I wouldn't have needed my parents to be like my husband. Like that's kind of what I say is that like my parents are like my husband. And eventually I did end up working. I got into mortgage and real estate, and I did hit a point where I was like, I need to provide for my family, my daughter. But it was like around the time that my daughters were like in kindergarten, and but those first few years, when you're raising 2 literal infants by yourself, and that mental anguish of just like I have no like. You can rely on your parents, but if you don't have like that backbone of like your husband, which I've never really known what it feels like, but I always like imagine it. I'm like, I would rather fall asleep to a safe man than like every day I am going to bed alone. I'm wondering if someone's going to come in, break in. I'm checking on my daughters. Like I don't have that balance of like somebody else taking on responsibility. I never had it. I don't know what it would feel like. I'm so good now at managing everything by myself. Yeah. But I remember in those moments, I was so like naive to a lot of things, and I was always like, I just want someone to just come, just like take me and just protect me. And I was always so overwhelmed. And my biggest thing was to not project that onto my daughters. So I was like always the strong mom. We've had structure, and I would put them in dance and gymnastics since they were 18 months old, just so that we could have structure. Our home was always kept extremely neat and clean. I always taught them to have manners, but on the inside I was always like, what about me, God? Like, So Yeah, and I was not working. Thank God.
I know, because having 2 kids, and I can't even imagine what childcare would have been like. I feel like a lot of women choose to not work only because of how expensive it is to care for children in California.
Yeah.
It's insane. It really is. Childcare is a lot.
Yeah.
And then, you hear all the stories about childcare and daycare facilities, and then it's scary, you know, and it's hard to really trust other people with your children.
Yeah.
And essentially they're raising them too.
I know.
So what are they teaching them?
Yes.
What are they hearing, watching?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even now, I mean, you just worry about your kids in school in general. We were just talking about the story.
Oh, but I don't remember the names, but the little girl recently, she's 12 years old, and apparently she got hit in the head with a hydro flask or something like that.
At school.
And
every
another
kid has a hydro flask at school.
Yeah.
Kids do not live without their water bottles.
Right.
I mean, but then you look back, like my mom never sent me to school with her water bottle. How am I here?
I had a Capri Sun. One Capri Sun.
Throw those away.
I literally get a call all the time. Mom, I forgot my water bottle. I'm like, don't you have water fountains?
Yeah.
And my daughter's like, Mom, are you gonna bring me the water bottle or not? Or should I call Guela, my mom?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Guela will bring you your water bottle right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a weapon now.
Mm-hmm. She passed away.
That's
so sad. And she was little too.
12.
Yeah. And I mean, kids are mean.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we don't know the extent of what happened, but it's like, how does that happen? And I feel like you're always worried about your children no matter what, whether you have a partner or not. But I feel like in your situation, I mean, you had every right to feel that way. You're raising 2 humans on your own. You're vulnerable. And I mean, your dream, most people's dream of having this happy relationship with 2 kids and a home. I mean, that's what we grow up as little girls thinking happily ever after is going to be. And then when it's not, you're like, hello?
Yeah. Especially when you have to make the decision to say no. Yeah. That's the hardest because the other person's never going to make that decision.
So how old were the girls, or how long did you guys stay in a relationship before you guys separated? And when was it like officially done?
Well, I'll take responsibility for staying with someone that I should have never stayed with. So there was never a period of like, we're together and then we're not. We were never really together. We were just on and off. And so I remember when I got pregnant, we were already broken up. And then when I told him that I was, he's like, well, children don't need to be raised in a house with both parents. He's like, I didn't. And I was like, but I was always longing to like fix him,
Yeah.
And so that's why I would stay. And I always kind of like just focus on people's potential.
Yeah.
And especially from 22 to 26.
Of
and
course.
he's like bigger and better than anyone I've ever seen. And he's like super social and everybody knows who he is. And I'm 4 years younger. And my whole life, like I was a bullied nerd. Like I was such a nerdy little girl. And then I see like him and like everything he comes with. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm finally going to be super cool. I'm going to get into like every nightclub. And it was like such a innocent, but just dumb way of thinking.
Yeah. But that's just how we all think at 21, 22, like the cool guy is like paying attention to you.
Yes.
I don't think that's weird or anything. I literally think that that's most people. 20, 21, 22. You're like, oh my God, they can get me in this club. How cool.
Yeah,
what
but
in the world?
Most women have the discernment enough to like at some point be like, you know what? This isn't working for anymore.
I don't need to go to the clubs anymore.
I don't need to go to the club.
and if I win, I don't need you to get me in.
No, but then it transitioned into like I still learned very quickly. I was going to Chapman University. I was still getting my bachelor's in business admin with an emphasis in finance, not just business admin. And I was like always a nerdy kid, but like there was a side of me that just wanted so badly to like be seen. And I thought that I could get it through him, and I kind of did. But at some point I didn't know like that should have just ended. Like by the time I was like done feeling like I needed to like go through that like chapter in life, it transitioned into, okay, well, this guy's still drinking, still doing drugs, So let me fix him out of this phase.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what got me stuck, because I'll say by 23, I was like, I'm not doing any more of this. And I thought that if I could stop doing it, because it was easy for me. I was never addicted to anything. I was a goody two-shoes my whole life. I was like, well, maybe he'll follow suit with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have the perfect family, because I know who he is deep down inside. And he's such a good guy, and he's so charming, and everybody loves him. So I know that we're going to get to a point where he gets sober, and we're just going to have an amazing family. And that never happened. If anything, like, it's totally deteriorated beyond what most people can control in their life. But when I was 23, I did get pregnant, and I had a miscarriage. And that kind of, it's a weird thing to say, but I think that fueled me to want to prove that I could, like, actually have a baby. So like and then I was like, that was the first moment. It's kind of like a trauma that you have where I was like, that's the first moment that I saw him be like, okay, I'm settling down. You know?
Oh.
And so I was like, well, if I could get
reaction.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
And the whole family got involved. And I was 23, he was 27, and everything kind of like shifted immediately. And then, I mean, I had a miscarriage very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And
but then you saw that potential.
yeah. And I was like, I'm chasing that. Like, if I could get him back to that. And so it was obviously a lot of continued chaos, because he has an addiction and he continues to want to party and do all these things. And then it affects his work, and he's in and out of jobs. And I'm just sitting there being like, it's okay, we're going to fix this. And being really toxic, a lot of abuse, a lot of, ups and downs, because I wanted his validation. I'm like, I have to be able to fix him, and that way I'll prove that I was good enough, So I never exited the situation, because unfortunately, like, when you seek validation so hard and you put your identity in somebody else, it's like you're trying to hit this milestone. Like, maybe if I have a baby, maybe if he gets sober, like, finally, like, my worth will be proven, And so that never happened to this day.
And I think a lot of women go through that, because like you probably didn't realize in that moment that you were in a toxic relationship.
No.
And we like talk about that all the time, like people not realizing. Or now you have, not just addictions, right? But you have this amazing person in the beginning, and then they go through some mental health crisis, or something happens, changes them. Then we have women that are like, I was just holding on to the person he was when we first met. Yeah. And then I never realized how toxic it got. Mm-hmm. And it's so sad, because it takes you years later to be like, why was I this person? I'm not that person. Mm-hmm. Why was I there? Yeah. And obviously, you realized why, but for people that are in that moment, I don't think that anybody could tell them.
No. And that's the hardest thing for me is, and I have so many friends that they see how I've come out alive on the other side. Mm-hmm. And they want me to help them so bad, and they tell me everything, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so textbook. It's such a textbook behavior from the man, because we call it narcissism, but to really like diagnose is like, no, there's narcissistic qualities, there's avoidant tendencies, there's all these things, and I wish I could give them the formula, but I'm like, a lot of people just need to either hit absolute rock bottom. They need to wait to be discarded, which could happen, especially with these guys who you're like their supply. They're eventually going to just get rid of you. Mm-hmm. You need to go through enough pain, or some women just end up dead. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's the absolute truth. Or the worst thing that can happen is that, and I've seen this in my family, that the woman is in their 60s, 70s, 80s, still going through the cycles with her abusive, toxic husband. And they die that way. My grandmother, I love her. She is actually one of the women that gave me the most strength. And I always have this thing replaying in my head that since I was a little girl, she's like, you're a princess, a man needs to treat you like a princess. But all the while I saw my grandfather cheat on her, disrespect her, until the day my grandma died at 64.
Wow. She was young.
She was young. Yeah. She was getting like her full body like redone, plastic surgery. maybe to make my grandfather fall in love with her, who never respected her.
Wow.
Yeah. And my grandmother basically died on the surgery table.
Oh, wow.
Wanting to impress her husband till the last day.
Yeah. And I think back then, I mean, the stigma of a divorce, right? Like you just stay.
Yeah.
And now we've gotten away from that.
Yeah.
Like you don't stay. If you're not happy, you leave. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're in your 70s, you leave.
We have clients call in all the time, and it's someone's grandma or grandpa, and I'm like,
great grandma.
And sometimes we joke like, you got maybe 5 more years.
Yeah, you're fine.
But 3 more years. But then at the same time, we're like, and then recently we've had clients that I feel like every other time we call, like, she's in the hospital, and I'm like, just getting nervous. And I'm like, should we speed this thing along? Or like, I don't know, right? Or like, is this bringing the stress on?
Yeah.
But more power to them, right? Like they were able to see, like, no, I don't want this anymore. And I mean, it's so sad, but at the same time, like, maybe you can live the last few years of your life happy because now we, as especially women, and I think men too, like we're okay with being alone.
Yeah.
Whereas back in the day it was weird. Like people that were alone were weird. And it was like, well, are you going to find somebody? And now it's like, well, I'm just taking time to be with me. But I don't know, maybe there's like Hinge for there's the older people
where like people want to be alone, where it's you like the solitude, you like the routine that you have, and then you just want somebody there to kind of have a good time with for a little bit, and then it's like, okay, back to the solitude, no text, no calls until you feel like coming out again. It's like, what is happening?
That's what I was gonna say is like, especially right now in society, I think there's like a fine line between like, yes, you need to get out and divorce this person, but everyone's too comfortable with this like freedom that they have, right? And so nobody wants to commit.
Yes.
And so I think vetting someone from the beginning is super important, but like, it's just hard because I'm thinking like, okay, vet them and then find the perfect person. But a lot of people have the perfect person and they just won't stick with them, you know?
And I think a lot of it is really social media.
Yeah.
And I think it's chasing better, right?
Yes.
And then you're so hooked on your phone, seeing that the grass is always greener somewhere else. And I look up sometimes and I look at people on social media and I'm like, they called their office, Yeah. And they're over here posting like they're in this wonderful happy marriage. And it kind of makes me mad in a way where I'm like, you're just lying to people.
Yeah.
And you're causing people to think that this is what love is. This is what a relationship is. But in reality, your relationship is not like that because you called me for a DV, you called me for a divorce, and which you guys got back together. Great. And I think that people should, in a marriage, people should be able to give each other second, third, fourth chances.
Yeah.
And it's not, okay, we're just not compatible. We're going to walk away.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, that was not okay. And it happened in front of the children. And now you guys are posting like you guys are a happy couple. Like that is something wrong. Clearly there's something wrong. But now you're just projecting this pretend fake loving relationship to people. Yeah. And then people are looking at it like that's what we need to be. And I kind of want to go on and be like, okay, all of the people that you see on social media are probably fake, but then I look like the lunatic, right? I'm like the conspiracy theorist, all this stuff, right?
But it's true.
But it's so true. And I feel like it just breaks people down because they're looking at it like, I'm with this person and we're hustling every day and we're working and we don't have money to take these vacations. And here you have this influencer family that are going on these vacations. Am I happy? Like, with my partner? Because we rarely see each other. When we do, it's late at night because we're tired.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that makes me sad for the generations and for the world. And it's like, the grass is not always greener.
No.
And people, just because people project something on social media or your neighbors, right? It used to be the grass was always greener because people used to be like, you don't know what goes on in other people's homes.
Right.
Because your neighbors can say, I got the fancy car, I'm great, but are they? But now it's like, it's so easy at your disposal and everyone's like posting pictures. And, I talk to photographers all the time, and one photographer, she actually was recently on, she was telling me that she used to do family pictures, and that the families that would fight in front of her was insane. And I'm like, and then they go and post their happy pictures. That's like wild, you know? And I mean, as moms, we're always like threatening our kids, like, if you don't freaking smile, but it's like another thing to be like threatening your husband or like, you know, having a full on altercation over here when you're like telling the kid like, okay, smile. And they're like, So I think it has a lot to do with social media and the effects that it has on people to see lies, because that's what it is.
Yeah, temptation.
Yeah, and no relationship is perfect. I get that, but it's about communicating in your relationship and being able to say like, am I really happy? Do I really want this? Like, okay, I do, but what needs to change? And should I have this conversation with this person or should I not? And more than likely you should. You should be able to tell your partner what's going on or that you need them to change. And if they don't listen, then I mean, that's where you make hard decisions.
Right.
But it's hard to think, and I'm assuming that was a lot of what you portrayed too, you know, being okay with your girls when deep down inside you're like, I'm not okay. But you have to be strong for your kids, and that's the most important thing to do. So now that you've left the relationship, you've been on an ongoing custody matter, I think you said, for a few years. So what's been going on with that? I know that we had talked a little bit about you having to get a restraining order. So obviously there was abuse, three restraining orders. Obviously there was ongoing abuse. And now you share custody with somebody like this.
It's really hard. So if we rewind to the beginning of it, it was one of those periods where we thought that we could make it work as a family. And it was kind of like a last resort type of thing, because when I was pregnant, I was not living with him. He was out partying. I was actually living at home with my parents.
I would have showed up to the club pregnant. I'm here too. I'm just kidding.
Been like, what are you doing? And then when I got pregnant again, which was like right away, we had decided to live together probably halfway through the pregnancy until I gave birth to my first daughter. And I don't know if I want to say
I mean, whatever you're comfortable saying, obviously.
Well, so when I found out that I was pregnant with my second daughter, he was obviously going out and partying, and I had morning sickness, and he would just keep yelling at me over the toilet. You decided to keep this baby. This is on you. And I remember, and I only want to say this because I think it's going to help other women, you know?
Yeah, of course.
I remember just feeling helpless, because anytime that I would try to leave with my daughter, because the thing that I know a lot of women go through is there's domestic violence like all over the place, right? A lot of people keep it silent, or they engage in it, so they think it's just like, it's not, they don't consider it domestic violence. Everyone tries to like dumb it down.
Of course, they minimize
it. Denial. They minimize it. And when I was pregnant and his behavior wouldn't stop with like not coming home at 3 a.m, 4 a.m, coming home drunk, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this long term with him, you know? And I need to protect my baby. Before I was pregnant and we were just dating, like I would, you know, try to change him while he was like having a drunk fit, and that's when the physical violence would happen, right? And so when I was like, hey, his behavior's not changing, now I'm pregnant, like I need an exit strategy. Like, well, I can't lose the baby, and like I like get thrown against a wall. I was like, but I didn't have the courage to leave, and I hadn't told anybody what was going on. I thought he was gonna change. So I didn't want to tell my parents or my friends. I was like, oh no, everything's fine. And so I started like, my first daughter was born, and I would just leave. I'm like, okay, it's around midnight, he's not coming home, I'm gonna go, just so that neither she or I are, you know, in the crossfire. And I would have these like traumatic like visions of her just being thrown against a wall, because everything that I went through from 22 to 26, like the abuse was super bad before my daughter was born. And so I was like, okay, well, he's not getting sober. She can like be unsafe. And then my second one was born, and he was yelling at me, telling me like, it's your fault. You want to keep the baby. This is your responsibility. I was like, how am I going to live like in the mom's basement with him forever? Like this, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was like specifically a day that he was out drinking with his friends, and I was like, where are you? Like, come on, like you need to just come home. And his mom had like a breakdown, like a mental breakdown. She's like, I can't protect you through this. Like no one's going to be able to change him. And so I think they called my dad, and my dad came, and he's like, he pulled me out of there. Like I remember, because we lived like, we had to go up the stairs to go to the driveway. And I remember my dad like pulling me out of like a dungeon. And I remember holding my daughter, and I'm pregnant, and I'm like saying goodbye to I'm like, okay, this is it, you know? And they moved all my stuff into my parents' house. I was put on bed rest, obviously, because I had just given birth. Like my cervix was not even fully healed.
Wow, yeah.
And nobody came to save me. Nobody said, no, I want my family. No. I was just at home on bed rest with a baby. And I remember in the moment, I wasn't crying depressed like I would before my daughters were born, whenever we would break up. I just had to keep going every day. Like, I'm a mother now. Like you said, there's no rule book. Like, okay, what's next? What do I need to make her baby food from scratch? Like,
yeah.
And you just keep going. And then the doctors tell you that you need to be on bed rest. So like every minute was like a challenge. And then my second one was born, and he came to the hospital, and then he came and stayed with me. And I'm in, my parents' house is not that big. And I'm in like this 8x8 room with a crib, like a full-on crib, and then a bassinet.
And then your bed.
And then my bed.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought, okay, well now he's gonna come and like he's gonna contribute. And by the second day alone of being home, he was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go back home now. And then I walk into my room, and I'm like breastfeeding one, it's time for bed, the other one's asleep, and I'm like, this is my life. Like,
you're like, okay, when do I get to go home?
When do I go home? So that was like this on and off thing. There was no cord involved. And then when they turned around 2 and 3 was when he's like, let's try this again. And I'm the idiot that's like, okay, you know, it's just your traumas and your childhood traumas, and it's okay, we're gonna get past it. And he proposed to me on Father's Day, all drunk at Tempo Cantina. And then at the end of it,
I can just see like the neon lights and like the
skull with the shot.
Yes. And I'm like,
how
what
funny
is this? And then that night he went back home. I dropped him off because he was so drunk he couldn't drive. So I drove him home with my ring on, and then I went home.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I did that for a while. Like he lived in his like place with his roommate, and they would party behind my back, and I would always find like tampons in his trash can and makeup on towels and things like that. And then my idiot self would come, and I would pack my car to the brim with the pack and plays, with the toys, with everything, 2 babies that couldn't even walk. And I'd drive over there on like alternating weekends. And I would be like, here I am, let's be a family.
Wow.
Absolute.
But maybe that probably wasn't, you know, you look at it like, how could I be that dumb?
Yeah.
But that was probably you being like, this is how I can keep my girl safe.
Yes.
I don't have to be with him.
Right.
I prefer to have my space, but I still need to make sure that he's a dad and give him some responsibility, which is why you would probably come every other weekend.
Yeah.
And you were probably just not very comfortable with leaving the girls by themselves. It's not like you seemed like you were like, hey, come pick them up.
No.
Right.
No.
So then that's where
a better narrative. That's a better story. I should tell myself, and I'm like, you're a freaking idiot.
Well, yeah, I mean, like now you look back and you're like, what was I thinking? But in hindsight, you have to look at it like I was doing my best, because there's no handbook. I was doing my best to protect my children. that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
And maybe you driving him home and being like, okay, have a good night, bye, was just your way of doing that.
Yeah.
And I mean, no story is the same, right? And this is just your story.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
I mean, you were strong regardless of what you tell yourself. And I think like listeners, they might find themselves literally in that same situation, looking at it like, well, on every other weekend, we have a good time.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is that?
Yeah. What is that? And why are you doing it? That's absolutely true. I instinctually would not leave my kids with him, you know? And I think that's where it became difficult because I still was trying to control the narrative, because I knew subconsciously that if I ended it, I might lose 50% of my kids. And he is not a safe person. And I just knew I could not. And that was my fear, because when I would leave, when we were still kind of living together while I was pregnant with the second one, he would always text me, I'm going to call the cops, tell them that you're kidnapping my daughters. And I didn't know.
We get that all the time.
I didn't know the law. I didn't know anything. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm not kidnapping them, so I'm like, do I have to come back? You know, I was like super naive, and I was like, well, he's not safe right now because he's, you know, intoxicated. And so I would just live in this terror and this hypervigilance. And one night I remember, not that I was suicidal at all, but he came home. My daughter was luckily asleep. I was pregnant, and he was like throwing everywhere, and he was being really aggressive. And he had like pushed me into the bassinet, and he's like, if you leave right now, I'm going to call the cops, tell them that you kidnapped the kids, my one daughter. And I remember going into the bathroom, and I was like, I can't call anyone. Like, anybody would have called mom and dad or like ran out of the house. And I remember calling a suicide hotline, not because I was going to kill myself, but because I know that they can refer you to like a therapist or something. And I was like, hey, I need to keep this anonymous. I don't want to kill myself, but do you have anyone you can refer me to that I can speak to, like a women's center or something? Because
I never even thought about that. And a lot of people do find themselves in that situation with no one to call, nowhere to go. I think we had a previous guest on here, and she talked about how she just lived in his family home, and the mom was always like, don't call the cops, like, you know how he is. And then she would call the cops, but then it was like, okay, just leave. And he would leave. And then, but she's like, but how, I didn't know how I was going to get out, what I could do. Nobody told me. And I mean, we tell people now all the time that there's women's shelters or places that you can call, but I mean, who wants to do that? Or nobody wants to believe that they need that they need that help. Until looking back now, you were like, it would have been better to go to a women's shelter any day than be in the situation I was.
And I used to work at a women's shelter, and this kind of reminds me of one mom specifically. She was in her early 20s as well. Same thing. He would come back intoxicated or on drugs, and she would threaten to leave. And so I think she said she was napping or something, and he literally came and just like injected her with, I don't know what drug he was doing. She said that she just remembers, feeling the high and like sitting there. And then when she like got out of it, and the babies were little, and he was like, go ahead, call the cops now, because you tell them that I'm doing drugs, I'll tell them to drug test you too, and you're going to come out positive as well. So it's just crazy.
The manipulation.
Yes. But even that, to the extent that he went to just do that to her.
No.
So.
And then we have women that'll say that, you know, the other party has recordings of them when they were just so mad. It's like, get out of here, because you were already antagonizing me. You were already yelling. And so now I'm at the point of like, literally, I have lost it. And now you're going to record me. And now that's what you're going to show the court. But what happened before that? And the court, unfortunately, thinks that normal people don't get to that point. But they do. They do.
That is like the narcissistic,
and you add
spell.
Hormones to it. You add like, having a baby. You just add so much, or just weeks and years of abuse.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where, you know, they yell at you and maybe you just learn to yell back, even though that's not instinctively who you are.
Yeah.
And we talk about all the time. I feel like sometimes people make each other toxic in relationships. They become toxic together.
Yeah.
So then you'll see couples and you're like, oh yeah, they're toxic. But it's like, were they both really toxic?
Yeah.
Or did one make them the other toxic? Because then they get out of relationships and they're like, oh, you're like, oh, you guys are normal.
They're normal.
And you're like, oh, this
It
is
was
weird.
just when they were together.
It was just when they were together.
Yeah.
Like, this is weird, but it's true.
It's true.
And so sometimes people grow up, right? They change, but sometimes they don't.
No, people used to, his friend group would always tell me, oh, she's just so young and she's the one driving you crazy. And I was always blamed for so many things. And then I remember throughout the years, because I was always blamed and like every time I would get hit or choked or whatever, it was always like, well, you pushed me over the edge. Like you shouldn't have acted this way. And I remember at 23 checking myself into like a psychiatrist. And I said, hey, I keep pushing my boyfriend over the edge. I was like, and they prescribed me antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds. I was like numbed out for like a week. And
you were the one going to go get help.
Yeah.
That's what's so crazy about it.
And I told him, I said, look, I know that I'm the one that's pushing you. And I came home with my meds. And yeah, I remember like I was just so, like I was not myself. And even he was like, what is going on? And I was like, I just want to be better. Like I was so brainwashed by this person. Because the tendencies towards certain, you know, narcissism and sociopathy and all that stuff, like I think it's serious, because when you say that some people just like drive themselves to be toxic, I agree with that. But then when you see their patterns of behavior and now you've been removed for 4 years and you see that they have continued and probably even deteriorated, like it was never me.
Yeah.
Right? And I've seen other girls get restraining orders on him. And I've heard of other episodes where things are thrown and broken and all this stuff. And
so now you're like, oh, okay, maybe I was a little crazy, but not that crazy.
I wasn't that crazy.
Because we're all crazy, but like not that crazy. Or maybe I was getting, you know, he was driving me crazy.
Yes.
Because that's probably
this
what it
reminds me of that movie with
the one that just
Sydney
came out.
Sweetie.
Yeah.
Yes.
A housemaid or something.
Yeah. And
I just saw that too. And I was like, oh my gosh, like
the manipulation. I think it is. And it's, and you know, we all want to think that people change and we all see the charming person, not realizing.
That's what people see.
Or that's what people see, because that's what they want.
And then
other
when
people
you
to
were
see.
saying that you were trying to fix this person because behind closed doors, you know, they're more vulnerable and you see that other side that people, and that's what I can see can keep you
there.
on a leash.
Yeah.
Well, because they're so good at victimizing too. As soon as it was looking back at it, it was just so theatrical. But like the whole thing of like, I get the guts to be like, okay, that's the last time I got manhandled. I remember one time I was living out of state and this person came home at like 4 a.m., completely belligerent, like threw me on the floor, kicked me in the stomach, and I had just been waiting for him the whole night. And there was like a wad of ones. And apparently he fell asleep on a taxi and just kept going around and around until he woke up. And he walks in, it's like pitch black. I open the door and he's like, why did you have the door locked? And then like throws me on the floor. I'll never forget that moment. And I remember locking myself in the bathroom and I was like, who do I call? I can't call my mom, right? I can't expose him. Called his brother. His brother was like, you know what you got yourself into? And I was like, okay. And then, like
wrong number.
And I had to like hold myself against the door with my feet against the sink. And I was like, this guy's going to come in and kill me. And he had broken an A1 bottle and he was like chasing me around. And I didn't call the cops. I didn't tell anybody. I just told his brother. And I was like, I just need him to fall asleep. I need him to fall asleep. And I started packing my stuff because I was like, I can't do this. And I would whenever I would come visit, I would wear long sleeves to like make sure nobody could see my bruises. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm getting in the car and I'm leaving. And I did. And I was like an hour out and he calls me. I think I'm having a heart attack. I need you to come back. Like, you know, like this whole thing about his health. And like, it wasn't like, I'm sorry. It was more like, my health is not okay. I need someone to take me to the hospital. And of course I turned back around.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I just don't know. I'm just having like this thing. And I think it's probably because I'm taking this medication or that thing. And then I just stayed with him.
Because now you probably were thinking like, okay, there was a reason.
There was a reason. Mm-hmm. Well, I was more, again, like an idiot enough to just, I have too much empathy. So I'm like, oh, I feel bad. He
needed me.
He needed me. And like, how am I going to abandon this person? Like,
yeah.
I was 23 and I eventually went home. I like stayed to like take care of him. I went home and, you know, it was like, yeah, I had to wear my long sleeves for like 2 weeks, you know, things like that, that I remember. And then of course, all those things flash, you know, all those memories come back and now you're pregnant. You're like, is this going to continue when I have my babies? And so the reason the whole court thing started was because we were in Arizona. We took our first vacation because I was like, I'm not going anywhere far with this guy, right? I need like direct access to like family or a car. And I always had that in the back of my head. And the girls were 2 and 3. We had just kind of moved in together to try it out. Mind you, he got arrested for domestic violence within 2 months of us living together. We weren't with the girls, but he got mad at a club. He threw my phone in the sink. He's like, you're out of luck. I ran out in my underwear. A security guard went in to tell him, like, hey, can she have her phone back? And he got himself basically arrested because he was being a nuisance. And I kept telling the cops and the security guard, please don't. I was like, he's going to be fine. Like, I'm not going to press charges, you know, like even in that moment. And that was the first time they were like, we're sorry, there's nothing. Like, there's nothing you could do because he's already kind of like,
getting aggressive with them.
He's already getting aggressive with us. And I was like, so then, then a month later of us living together, he doesn't come home. I'm doing my vigilance thing. I'm going to my mom's house with both girls. I'm running out with one on each hip. And he texts me, you know, he was out partying. He texts me at like 2 a.m., a picture of his face completely, his teeth like bashed in, like he got jumped behind a taco truck or something. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, bro, you need to get help. And we didn't come back for a couple weeks and then we do the cycle again. And then we go, it was like, what's the holiday in May? Whatever. Memorial Day weekend. And so we go, he's right away getting drunk at the pool. And it's just me with the kids and him. Like there's no need to drink White Claws at the pool. And
White Claws keep coming up in our sessions.
Like
please don't sponsor us. I'm just kidding. His point.
And he was asking my cousin who lives out there if he had any drugs. And then I was sober. And then I remember him just like being off his, kind of like getting all drunk. And so we were like heading back to the hotel and he was already getting crazy in the car. And I was like, hey, calm down. I'm going to drop you off really quick. I'm going to go get McDonald's for the girls. It was like 10:30. They were like half asleep. And then he's like, okay. And he goes into the hotel and I just jetted out. I was like, I'm not coming back. And so I went to my cousin's house. I was like, lock all the doors. Someone's going to have to give him his car back, but I'm not going into that hotel room. Because that's like, my story's going to happen tonight. My kids are going to get beat up. I'm like, no. And so that moment, they gave him back his car. He took no responsibility for anything. He stayed partying. My cousin drove me to the airport. I got a rental car and I drove my daughters back to my mom's house. And I texted him, I said, we're not coming back home because you need help.
Good.
Like, and then I got served saying that I am schizophrenic, kidnapped his kids, and he wanted 50-50 custody.
Wow.
And that was the beginning. That was 2019. That is a custody battle that we are fighting to this day.
That is, and we hear that a lot, where you didn't call the cops, you tried to save him, and then they just hit you with wild stuff in court. And so now you're in court defending yourself. Like, I wasn't the crazy person.
Yeah.
It's this person.
Well, I will say that when that happened and I got served, he served me with an emergency order because he's saying that I kidnapped the kids and that I'm mentally unstable.
But how can you kidnap the kids if they're your kids and there was no court order?
Right.
And a lot of people need to know that.
Yeah.
Because people get all freaked out. Yeah. I'm interested to see what
I got freaked out, of course, because I thought, again, I'm detaching so you can get help and see what you're about to lose.
But now I'm the senile one.
I'm the crazy one. So I was really, really lucky because over the course of by that time it was about 6 years, 4 to 6 years. I can't do the math right now. I had been documenting a journal to myself every single instant that there was abuse. And I would send myself an email and I would title it documentation and then whatever he would do. And I took pictures, when I was pregnant, he was drunk, punched me in the face. I had a bruise on my cheek when I was pregnant with my first one. And obviously in the moment I was like, something told me I'm gonna be able to use this one day.
And you just had years of that.
And I had years, and I remember I never thought I would be in the position where I'm hiring an attorney, and I wasn't even so terrified about the 50-50. I was terrified about losing him in the moment. I was like, no, he's gonna go find another woman, be better for her. It was like that attachment thing. And I printed out every single email, and it was like a stack, a really fat stack. And when that came in, it was an emergency order. Obviously, the judge right away was like, no. And then the judge essentially told my attorney, let her pick what she wants. It was a good moment for me, in the court system, because immediately I was like, you know what? I never wanted to do this, but you need to show the judge all of this stuff. And so I don't remember if the judge saw that and then they told me that I could pick whatever I want, or if his attorney saw everything and was like, oh crap, you better not push the issue with her.
Which is usually the case.
And his attorney, back then, which is what women should not do, is back then I would be very confrontational through text messages. And I would be like, I'm gonna what was my word? I was like, I'm going to eat you alive in court. I would get, because obviously I couldn't talk to him like that in person, but he was always stalking me, putting air tags in my car, doing all this crap. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take you down. I was like, I have all the financial resources. I would say all that stuff.
Oh, and then that's only what the judges.
Yeah.
So the judge doesn't see everything that led you up to that point. Yeah. Right.
But it's funny because that never was used against me until 5 years later. But in the moment, it didn't come up.
But I feel like
because his stuff was heavier.
Yeah. But I feel like that's why you don't do that.
Never.
You never do that because you don't know when they're going to use it.
Yeah.
Because we've had people bring us text messages from years ago, and I'm like, why did you text this? They're like, I don't even remember. And I'm like, okay, this looks bad. Because again, the court's not looking at it like you're a sane person, because the court wants to believe that a mom who's protecting their children wouldn't act this way, right? Because in the court's eyes, and not that I'm defending the court, it's like, were you really afraid of them?
Yeah.
If you were sending these, you were antagonizing them. But then it's like, you get to a point where what else are you going to do?
Right.
And we have clients write all these text messages and, saying well, enjoy your weekend because obviously things are going to have to change, and then it comes off as a threat. And it comes off as I'm going to make it so you don't have the girls because this is ridiculous. But that's all you write. Yeah. And it's like, why? Well, because, they were coming home crying or whatever the case may be. But it's so important to realize you cannot write these things.
No.
Even if you don't have a court proceeding just yet, you do not write these things.
Never.
Because they could literally come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the court system isn't trained or they don't care, but like, obviously, I think what they fail to understand is that you grow so much resilience and strength, especially when you stay with an abuser. Like, yes, like there are times when you're like curled up and you're getting beaten up, right? But that's not always, I don't even think that's actually how women are who are in domestic violence relationships. No, they learn how to stand up to the guy. Sometimes they learn how to fight back and then they become the perpetrator too. But like in toxic relationships, yes, like you learn how to be stronger. You're not just like the battered wife that's just like, oh my God, like, no, not really.
Well, that's why we have women that end up killing.
Yes.
And then we have the law that protects battered women to a certain extent, obviously. But that's what happens because you're in that moment. What do? You protect yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you learn, it's almost like you're conditioning yourself to be like, well, I battled him and I won this time. So I can just stay around him because what is he going to do next? And then you get really defensive and masculine and manly and you're just like, what are you going to do? You know? And then you stay because whatever, sex is good or the highs are really high and they're so great. And then you're just like battling each other and you become like a man.
Yeah.
And so all of that, you know, it comes through with the way you text him and the way, but in all reality, you're just like so terrified and you have no idea who you are, what you're doing. You're just lost. And it's a total, like, it's a result of like brainwashing. It's like a spell that they put on you and they want to see that you're being resilient and fighting because that gives them fuel too. Oh, look, she cares.
And that's what we tell clients. We're like, do not engage because that's what they want. But it's hard when people are calling you a bad mom or saying this about you or throwing a bunch of, you know, lies around a text message and you want to be like, no, but the best thing you could do is not necessarily don't reply because then you just look guilty because courts literally do that. They say, if you really weren't this person, why didn't you say, no, that's not true? It looks weird that you didn't say anything, right? Yeah. But how do you respond to all of these accusations and all of these threats all the time? You get angry and then you fight back. But then the court only gets those text messages and then you look like the crazy person.
Yeah.
You really do.
You do.
And it goes both ways, honestly. I don't think that it's just women. I think that men go through it too, where I'm like, do not text back. And it's like, you know, well, she's always threatening to take the kids, but then you decided to write, you know what, I'm going to go to court and take the kids from you. And then now you look like the psychopath.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, not that women do not commit domestic violence because we've seen it firsthand so much. Yeah. And I feel like they're just a little better at manipulating the entire situation. Yeah. And it just comes with the fact that, you know, we want to be protected and like we know how to turn things off and on. But when you show the court these colors, it's hard to be like, well, no, him. And it's like, okay, lady, but you too.
Yeah. That's what it became.
Yeah. A lot of cases too where they don't file anything, but they show us all that happened. And we're telling them like, we need to file this. And they're like, no, because I don't want to do this to my kids. Or, you know, they want to still protect that person.
But then later on we get hit with all and now we're on the defense. And I'm like, look, we look like we're defending when it's like, we could have painted the picture of like, this person is this. And that's it. That starts the narrative. And then with you, I know we talked a little bit about your case and how you continue to protect your girls throughout your court proceedings and how sometimes it just was not the right way.
No, I think a lot of it was I thought I could like verbally or through text like go up to bat with him. Like every accusation, every time he would stalk me or call me from other phone numbers, because that happened for many years. That's why I ended up getting 3 restraining orders after the actual breakup. Like once it was done, I was moved on to another relationship. Then his true colors really showed to the world because then it became a thing of like, okay, so she's actually done. And so coming in to sabotage my relationship, blowing up my boyfriend, calling from fake numbers. I don't know how we would find out so many things about like taxes and business addresses and business phone numbers. Like it became this weird obsession. And the incessant calling, like no caller ID, like through to like 3 a.m, different phone numbers. So it wasn't just like, okay, she left a bad toxic relationship. It was like, no, I couldn't even like move on because this person was like infiltrated in everything because he just didn't want to see me move on.
And that's what happens a lot. The domestic violence continues.
Yeah.
And that's why I think people don't leave.
They lose control.
Because then they feel like they lose control and then they're even worse.
Yeah. But it's so hard to tell people to have self-control, right? And like, you don't know until you're there, but like if anyone can just remember that like you have to just zip your mouth. You have to just not react, because if you can't let a person's behavior be revealed on its own, and they might show up and they might blow up your house, but like you cannot react. You cannot engage, even if you feel like, well, I'm saying something to him because he talked down to me or he's threatening me. He's not the person you want to talk to. He's never the person who's going to reason with you, who's going to be rational ever. And so you fall into his trap, you become irrational with him, you avoid the cops, you try to handle everything yourself, and then at the end of the day, we always end up losing. They are going to be the sick person that will always be the perpetrator, but they're such good manipulators. They know how to move every single chess piece. And we go crazy because we're normal, because we don't know how to, like, a normal person does not know how to navigate a crazy person. We don't have bad intentions. We are not calculated. We just operate off of just naturally being like, this doesn't feel good. Or I want to do something to make this other person feel good. But that person has every move calculated before you do. And you're going to sit there and you're going to try to figure them out. You're going to try to dissect their math equation.
Yeah.
You stay away because you're going to end up being the one that's like looked at as crazy. They will always manipulate the court system. They know how to turn on the tears when they need to. They know how to be the victim. They have the whole rule book of like the script of like, well, how am I going to not be incriminated? They've already thought it through. We're just being human, you know? And so I learned that in a very difficult way because we had already been through court so many times, but the abuse now towards my kids started getting bad. It was no longer just me. It was like, now that he felt like he got a one-up on me in court, he now felt like he ran the show. And so the way he would interrogate my daughters about my life, the way he would, physically hurt them, like all these things that continues to this day, now that's the thing that he does. That's how he tries to like get through to me.
And we see that all the time.
Yeah. Because the restraining orders worked to like really get him to understand that he can't blow up my phone, no caller ID. It hasn't 100% stopped, right? Because now he uses the excuse of like, where are my daughters type of thing. And then there's been a lot of behaviors that have stopped towards me, but now it's like, well, since I can't get through to her, how can I do things to the kids? And so we went through a really traumatic and long, like O.J. Simpson court trial. Because I was like, can we just be done with this? Because it just got, like it just wouldn't stop. The manipulation, the phone calls, all this stuff. And I'm like, we're done. Just like move on and be good to your kids.
Yeah, be a good dad.
Be a good dad. We filed like 3 emergency orders in a year because of things my kids were reporting. And then that was all while we're in trial. I hired an expert witness, a psychologist. She charged me like 10 grand just to be on the stand for like 5 minutes. We had witnesses. We basically brought back the full story, the full picture back. And because he wasn't like necessarily showing up at my place and doing all this stuff, the judge was like, well, this seems like to be more like a high conflict issue. And I was like, okay, what about his patterns of behavior? What about all the things that he does? Aren't we scared that that's going to translate onto the girls? And we have proof. I mean, well, they're complaining about things and they're like, well, okay, let's have the kids interviewed. CPS got involved. All these different entities got involved. And of course, my kids are not going to sit there and be like, yeah, we do not feel unsafe. And then say all the perfect things. No.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, the kids haven't really reported anything clearly. I'm like, well, they don't trust you. So then it became that thing of like, if there's no broken bones, then nothing's happening. And I'm like, what about all the times I get drunken phone calls or the girls are reporting things or one of them came home with a bruise on her eye saying that a water bottle got thrown at her eye. Like, is that not enough? Well, we don't have enough evidence.
Well, and I think because as a person in that situation, you're looking at like, pay attention. I'm telling you. And then the court's like, I don't know if we really believe you.
Yes.
And we need something to happen.
Yeah.
But then the more that happens, the more frustrated people get, the more they look like, they're like, but pay attention. So sometimes we have to tell people like, you just need to let the court orders go and do it. You cannot just be trying to file, trying to do things, trying to, catch them in things like yes, most people are abusive and continue to be abusive to their next victim.
Right.
But not always. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people are in a toxic relationship and they're amazing fathers. They're amazing mothers.
Yeah.
So the court's like, we don't know. We don't know yet until it happens. Mm-hmm. And then we find that our clients just look crazy because they're like, you need to say this, you need to say this. It's like, I can't say this because I got to wait until something happens in order to bring this in, because otherwise the courts is like, okay, all this happened, but then you stayed, lady. Mm-hmm. And then now here we are and you had another child with him and then you stayed again. Yeah. And so then was it really that bad?
Yeah.
And you're like, yes. And then the court's like, okay, well, let's find out. And that's where people go wrong. Mm-hmm. Because you have to let things happen. Mm-hmm. But as a parent, you're constantly on high alert because you're like, I know what happened to me. Yeah. And now we have daughters. Yeah. And it's like, do kids get hurt on the playground? Do kids get hurt, just walking and bumping into stuff, just running? Yeah. Yeah. And so then, okay, my children came home like this. Okay, well, let's do an interview. Are they going to say anything? No. But do kids say something sometimes when things are happening? Yes. Yeah. So that's where the court, it's hard.
It's so hard. It's such a gray area.
Very hard. And even though we want to blame the judges, we want to blame the system, we want to blame all these things, just like you said, some people are just master manipulators. Mm-hmm. And we get it all the time. Oh, they're going to buy the children off. They're going to do all these things and they're going to give gifts. And now the kids are going to go in there and be like, I love my other parent. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, your child really does love their other parent. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to put your children in that situation. Mm-hmm. And especially when you said, they don't trust them. Yeah. And so what do you do as a parent? Yeah. And, what my advice would be is you need to follow court orders and you need to just go through it until something happens. And it's unfortunate, but you need to be able to tell your children like, hey, if you ever feel unsafe, you need to call me. You need to call somebody, in that moment. We have texting, right? But it's more of like giving them the tools right now than to go in there and sound crazy to the court. Yeah. Because that's when people end up losing. Yeah. And it's so frustrating. Mm-hmm. And we tell people this all the time. Like, you just need to give court order time. Yeah. And they're like, well, how much time? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe something will click and they'll get better. Yeah. Maybe they won't. But it's hard.
It's really hard.
And the frustrating part is that you're going to be dealing with this for years. Yeah. So all we can do right now is just hope that things get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're not. And that's the hard part. And there are very obvious things where the kids' phones get hidden. I can't talk to them the whole entire weekend. I find out. And there's court orders for all of this.
But what I also tell people is that at some point your children are going to know the other parent without you saying anything. Yeah. They're going to know the other parent. Yeah. And giving them the tools like therapy or just being able to be in their safe space to come home and talk to you is going to give them what they need to one day speak up. Yeah. And maybe that's not going to come for years because kids want to protect the other parent. You hear all about it all the time.
100%,
They get abused for years, but they want to protect the other parent.
Or eventually they'll tell you, I don't want to go to visitation anymore.
But you won't have anything, right? Because they don't really want to say anything.
Well, right now, my daughters are super vocal. Like, they will tell you everything, you know? And I have an issue with one of them because she wants to tell everyone what goes on. And she has I'm trying to find a way of like managing like her coping strategy because she's very vocal. She's extremely articulate. And she's already, like you said, they've both already made their decision. And so, yes, I've given them the tools to just be happy, like safety things where like, okay, if this happens, then, you know, you're going to find a way to call me, and the phone's not available. So there've been times when they run out of the house and they have to go across the street. And there's all these things that I feel so bad that they have to do, but they are very smart and they kind of already know, you know? And it just kind of like more breaks my heart because to see my daughters tell me the things that happen and they tell me, why isn't there nothing you could do about it? And they see me, whether I tell them that I'm going to court or not, they already know. It's just the three of us.
Yeah.
They're just like, we know you're doing something, but like, why can't you fix it?
And then you have a court order telling you not to tell the girls anything.
Yeah.
And you're like,
but there's no way to actually like, they're going to hear your phone calls. You know, the other person is always telling them things, you know? And so it is really hard because they know what they want. They know what they don't want to be exposed to anymore. And then to see them sometimes when they're about to go, you know, like on their day with him, they'll have a fit in front of their classroom and not want to go inside. And I'm like, what's going on? And my daughters are super composed. They're not like that. You would think that they're like 35. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, we need to see you when we get out of school. Like, we don't want to go. We don't want to go. And I'm like, why? And I'm like, is there something else that you're not telling me? Because like, why do you have such a high level of fear? And they do just say things like, I'm just afraid that like something really bad is going to happen or that it's going to get worse
And as a mom, that's probably so difficult for you to hear.
Yeah.
But honestly, all you can do is just encourage them and let them know that if something is really happening, we tell this all the time.
Yeah.
If something really is happening, you don't have to talk to me.
Yeah.
Because I know you want to protect the other person, but there's other people you can talk to.
Yeah.
Because when your children talk to other people, you're no longer the crazy one.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I didn't call CPS. They went in and they told the principal, you know, and that's where it gets hard because you don't know when your child's going to get to that point, and hopefully it's sooner than later.
No, they have.
But that's what they need to do. That's what they need to vocalize, because otherwise, you know, the court's gonna, and here's the other thing that I think people don't understand is that the court is always going to want the other parent to be a part of the children's life. What that looks like, I don't know.
Right. It's never
It's not going to be a 50-50.
Right.
It's going to be 1-2 days a week, maybe. As much as the court can keep the kids protected, but still have that other parent.
Right. You're not going to get rid of them.
And that's the hard part.
Right.
And that's where you just need to learn how to follow court orders on your side and make sure your children are safe to an extent.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's their parent. They love them, even though they're afraid of them or whatever happens, right? They love their parent.
Yeah.
And the court's going to make that parent be there as long as the parent wants to show up.
Right.
And with narcissistic people or like crazy, they're never going to give up on their kids.
No,
that's what happened.
No. And to see the shift from like, you know, as soon as there was a clean break, like before that, there was no desire to go see the kids. You know what I mean?
We hear that all the time. They never, and all of a sudden they step up.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm here. And then it just becomes this thing where it's like, I don't know, it's like almost forcing the kid to want to love you. You know what I mean? Like I can just see that. And the kids sense that. They're just like, I'm not very comfortable, or, you know, there's a lot of behavior that's not like, you know, it could be so simple. It's like, you already know which days are yours. Just have fun with them. You have a well, the mother of your children, like, finance their whole life. I take them everywhere they need to. My life is like organized around them. I'm not asking you to be a part of their dance, or like, you can be, but I'm saying, like, I'm taking on full responsibility. The easiest thing is for you to just sit there and be like, hey, I have my kids from this day to that day, and have fun. There's nothing else you need to do. So I mean, I do know why, because there's a lot of instability, but it's like, why do you got to make things so much more complicated? And why do you have to like incorporate so much of like your emotion and all this stuff into their lives when like you just have them for like 72 hours? Just have fun with it.
And that's all we can tell other parents.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't see it. Hopefully at some point they will, but they won't. But thank you for coming on here and telling us your story. I feel like it was so much more deep than I could have ever imagined. And you're so amazing for
thank you.
Being able to talk about something like that, and everything you've done for your girls up until this point, and, you know, being told that you're the problem and that you were crazy, and willing to be like, I need help, or I'm going to change myself. I want to change them, and still turn out to be this awesome mom. I mean, honestly, kudos to you. And
thank you.
And I hope that the girls really see that at some point. And I hope that your story helps someone out there, because I feel like it happens more than we can imagine.
Yeah, I think so too. And I wish women would just like know their power, not in like a toxic feminine way, but like your value, and to understand that these men will not change, and their wound has nothing to do with you. It's like something so deep, you know? And if it's hard enough for us to like modify one thing, like I want to lose 5 pounds or go to the gym, and like it's so hard to do that one thing. Imagine like you're trying to resolve your own things, because on the daily we have our own things, and then you're trying to resolve a man's conditioning, his trauma, something that he has to go and be by himself on the top of a mountain to fix. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And you can love from afar. And the last thing I'll say is like, you don't have to punish him either, just to make sure that you're not ego bruised on your way out. Because that's what happens is people try to sabotage so much to be like, well, then him and all this stuff and put him down, and then you make your clear exit because like you need to feel so empowered. You're never going to feel empowered. You're always going to be sad. You go to sleep with yourself every night, and you need to like, yes, love from afar, be benevolent, be sweet, be kind, but walk away and walk away cleanly, you know? And unfortunately, some of those men will still probably come attacking you and doing all this crap to hurt you and manipulate you. But you have to just stand your ground.
Yeah, because why give them that power?
Don't give them the power. But like, love them from afar, knowing that they are just going through their own thing. And then protect yourself and work on yourself. And that's it.
Honestly, that was
100%.
Yeah, that was awesome. And really, we really hope that that sticks with someone that's in that situation, that maybe 23, 24, find themselves locked in the bathroom or struggling to figure out an exit plan. Anytime that you have to think about an exit plan,
it's time to leave.
It's time to leave, because it doesn't end well. It doesn't.
Never.
Luckily for you, you were able to get out, and I mean, your battle's not over. Your kids are gonna still be your kids, even after 18. I know we've said that before. But thank you for sharing your story and for being here with us today, and we loved hearing all about you, and we wish you luck, and hopefully, you know, it gets better.
It will.
Yeah,
I declare it.
Yeah. Put it on the universe.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on Drama in Session. If you're navigating divorce, custody, or conflict, you're not alone. At Reina Law, this is the work we do every day. If you have a Los Angeles County case, you can contact our office for a free consultation at 562-360-1588 or visit us at karinareynalaw.com.
If today's episode helped you, share it with someone who may need it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and join us next time as we continue breaking down the drama, the law, and the lessons in between.